where the wars and the ancient. In the shells where the spirits weep, a team of souls continue to seek. From the bell time they bravely tread the boots of the crowd team. In the land of the living where hope is sown, their courage and faith like a beacon shone. Guided by love, the spirits abound, the boots of the crowd team forever proud.
Hello and welcome back to Paranormal NL Podcast, located in Newfoundland and Labrador, Canada. That's PNL Podcast for short. I'm your host and founder, Jan Nosworthy. Thank you for tuning in to UPRN, United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 FM on Dak Gulf. Tune in every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern on uprntalkradio.com for Paranormal NL Podcast. For tonight's Spooky USA Thanksgiving special on UPRN, segment number 55. I've got two guests waiting backstage from Indiana, USA, who I'll bring on shortly. Now it's time to grab your favorite Thanksgiving beverage, get another plate of turkey or some more pumpkin pie, and get ready for the show tonight. Paranormal NL Podcast is sponsored by the Bob Team. It's a boots on the ground Bob Team doing historical paranormal investigations in Newfoundland, Labrador, Canada. Bob Team music heard in the PNL Podcast intro and exit is available for download on all social media and streaming platforms. Follow PNL Podcast and the Bob Team and their socials on their Linktree Paranormal NL Podcast. Check out their merch and smash those subscribe buttons. Now, PNL Podcast believes in supporting international paranormal networking and highlighting global paranormal people, places, and things. Now, for tonight, I've got all the way from Indiana, distiller, alchemist, author, and podcaster Alan Bishop and his witchy wife, Kim Bishop. Welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here. What a great intro.
Thanks. Should I say welcome back to y'all? Because you were on Paranormal NL Podcast before I even joined UPRN. You were on season 2, episode 170. And season 3, episode 5, and that was UPRN segment 13. So welcome back. It's great to have y'all.
Hi.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having us. Literal Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving. Look, I got you a pumpkin. One from the garden. You know, I should ask y'all, do you have Tim Hortons up there in Indiana?
What's that?
Jim Hortons?
Jim Hortons. Yes, but not. I don't think there's
any in southern Indiana.
Yeah, I know they're around, but I don't know where.
They've got those turkey sandwiches there now and pumpkin spice everything.
Oh, there's pumpkin spice everything everywhere anyway.
Right? Just this season.
Yeah.
So do you guys watch the Macy's Day Parade and all that too on Thanksgiving?
No. We kind of watch movies and...
Yeah, usually I'm working on If You Have Ghosts, You Have
Yep.
Everything at some point. And then
Yep.
we have family over and, eat way too much and take a nap. And
watch some football maybe?
no, I don't do football, man.
We
I
watch
can't.
movies, basically.
No, I can't.
Movies are old TV shows.
Yeah, we watch a lot of old TV shows. Like we were actually just watching Sanford and Son before we started this. So
Oh, okay.
I'm just stuck in the 70s.
For the folks listening who haven't heard your previous episodes, can you tell us a little bit about each one of yourselves?
Yeah, you want to go first?
I just pointed to you
Okay, well
first,
then I'll
so
go
not
first.
it.
All right, so I'm a distiller by trade. I grew up in a family of moonshiners, home distillers, whatever you want to call them, and was really involved in that as a child, and then also we raised tobacco. Years later, when I was a late teenager, I converted the old tobacco farm into an organic produce farm, and then started moonshining on the side for whatever that's worth. Turns out that liquor sells way better at the farmer's market than produce does, but had to get a job in the legal industry. So amongst that stuff as well, I'm the head distiller now at the old Homestead Distillery associated with Patoka Lake here in southern Indiana. That's actually in part of the Hoosier National Forestry. So a lot of crazy paranormal stories in that area of the woods, so to speak. But I've been involved in sort of the to some degree in folk magic, and whether you want to call it witchery, folk magic, as well as spiritual endeavors of my own accord for most of my life in one way, shape, form, or the other. Grew up around superstitious grandparents, but they were Southern Baptist, and so they did things that were witchy without realizing that they were witchy, more cunning folk sort of traditions. And I'd probably get smacked if I ever used the word witch around them if they were still around physically. But all those things are sort of interconnected for me. I have a very sort of Greco-Egyptian view that work and magic and religion and life are all very much intertwined. There's no real clear defined boundaries between all the things that I do. So I'm an astrologist, a little bit of a necromancer, but in a different way than, say, the Solomonic magic. I write grimoires. I talk about distillation. I am very much so tied to land and to cultural traditions and to alchemy. I'm more an alchemist than I am anything else, I suppose. So.
Yeah, you're a jack of all trades. When you say jack of all trades, they're talking about Alan Bishop. Now we got Kim here. Now, when I say the term witchy wife, do you want to explain a little bit about what I mean by that?
Well, I'm your average everyday kitchen witch, practical witch. I do lots of tarot reading. Tarot is actually my specialty. I've been reading tarot for 7 years now, thereabouts. Not psychic by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just very intuitive and very good at discernment. I've developed my own method of doing tarot. I've learned to recognize the patterns in the numbers and the symbols, and like repeating major arcana cards, repeating face cards, etc., to give a very detailed reading for someone who is not a psychic. And it's uncanny how many people come back to me and like, wow, that was a little bit terrifying, actually. I've been told on numerous occasions that, spirit kind of called people out, and I'm like, well, that's what happens. But other than that, I am a stay-at-home mom, home canner. I help a lot on the farm as far as saving seeds and preserving what food Alan harvests, which this year we kind of had a flood that kind of destroyed the garden. So
yeah, I'm sorry about that. So you must have lost a lot of your stuff that you were going to harvest.
We did, and it was pretty rough on our end. We lucked out. We almost lost the house. We were
it came up and went down, and it came up in about 20 minutes and went down just as quickly.
But we were still able to harvest some stuff from the garden. I've got
ironically a lot of pumpkins.
Yes, I've got a background in plant breeding, and some of my stuff survived. So we've got a lot of winter squash we're gonna end up using for probably making tincturing alcohol, because we make a lot of tinctures and things of that nature as well. A lot of our own medicine. We also had a lot of peppers that survived. We had a lot of marigolds and Mexican sunflowers, thankfully. So
the sunflowers stood up taller than the highway, so they survived. Yeah. And
I love sunflowers. And in Canada, the harvest season is completely different. We had our Thanksgiving already in October, because our growing season, you got to pick it all earlier, or else yours is in November. We usually got snow by then, but the climate is so screwed up right now. The animals don't know what's going on, and I don't think Mother Nature knows what's going on, because we're losing a lot of our harvest that we would normally have like, for example, we're having a shortage for animal feed, like hay and stuff like that for the horses. Are you having that problem too?
Yeah, and we're in southern Indiana, so our average frost date is about the second week of October, roughly. But we will harvest some things, obviously, corn and soybeans, stuff like that, up into November. The big farmers will. This year there was, in southern Indiana, it was the wettest spring and early part of summer that I've ever seen. Like that flood that we got, it was just a localized thing, but it was about 5 inches in about an hour or so.
It was during a time when we are normally going into like drought.
And then once it finished, though, everything went into drought. And it was almost immediate drought, especially, which is surprising considering the amount of rain that we'd had up to that point, plus the snow cover we'd had in the winter, which we hadn't had in a number of snow cover. It was a very late spring this year. It stayed cold and wet for really, really hard. It was a horrible year for morel mushrooms. It was a horrible year for a lot of things. Now,
Yeah. I heard people talk about the corn was getting eaten a lot up by the rats and stuff, and
even in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
And
Our greenhouse plants didn't do very well at all.
Do you guys have some folklore related to your growing stuff there?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's tons of that sort of stuff, like planting 3 seeds, one to grow, one to rot, and one for the crow, sort of thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of folklore around the moon, and obviously planning by lunar phases, but also being able to read the moon, whether it's going to rain or not. You don't plant your corn until the oak leaves are the size of mouse ears. So there's plenty of that sort of stuff, and that's been another major thing that I've tried to delve into. As you can tell, so Kim has a lot of natural gifts, and I don't know that she necessarily had a lot of people in her family that were involved in those sort of things. I have a lot of things that I picked up from family, and then I struggle to learn a lot of other things, and I focus a lot on philosophical magic with natural magic and history. And so my thing is to try to find like those old folklore sayings for Southern Indiana and bring them back, because a lot of that stuff got buried.
Yeah. What kind of, do you actually go by some of this stuff that you're talking about? Do you practice by that? I've got your almanac, a picture of your 2025 one pulled up, and as we get along here, I can open up the PDF and delve deeper into it later. But some of these things that you talked about with folklore, do you go by that for your homesteading? And
yeah, not just homesteading, but life in general. And strangely, so I've gotten far more into it in recent years, obviously, but it's always been there because it was ingrained in me. So let's say, for example, traditional farmers' almanacs, like the Old Farmer's Almanac or the Farmer's Almanac, those would be considered old forms of like very low magic, like the kind of stuff the church would overlook, right?
Okay.
But my grandparents, they always had an almanac tied up through the almanac has a little hole in the corner, so you can hang it up on a nail or hang it on a string. They always had it hanging next to the kitchen door, which is the one they used to go out to their truck. And my grandpa my grandpa couldn't read, to be clear, but he could read the signs. He knew what the signs were, and he looked at it every single day before he went to work or he went to the farm.
Okay.
And so I grew up with that. I grew up with my grandma. Well, my grandparents on both sides, they harvested a lot of wild plants, did a lot of foraging, which is a common thing in Southern Indiana and most rural areas, I think. But my grandma did a lot of folk medicine and things of that sort of stuff. So I've always had that in me. And then as I've gotten older, I started to apply it to other places in my life, like distillation, or, various magical practices or alchemy.
Talk to me, Alan, about your barrels. Now, I think I blew past. Well, here's one right here. The key is only as important as the door it may open. Now, I've noticed on all your barrels, I think, there's usually something here. Do you draw this and color it, or is that you, Kim? You're doing that?
That's him. That's 100% him.
That's all me. It's and it depends on what it is that I'm a lot of times that's just sort of intuitive stuff. Sometimes I'm doing traditional astrological or otherwise, maybe sometimes even Solomonic style sigils and stuff of that nature, or seals. A lot of times it's astrological stuff, and a lot of times it's imbued with multiple meanings, right? Either the esoteric or the exoteric or both together. Sometimes it relates to the astrology that day. So that particular key. So this was very recent. This is at a time when a particular goddess, you might call it, even though I consider myself Gnostic, I believe in lower powers as well. A particular goddess, Hecate, has sort of presented herself in interesting ways in my life, or the idea of Hecate anyways. And it just so happened to be at the same time that I believe it was Regulus was lined up with the moon. I think the sign for Regulus is actually on the key. Of course, the sun is there because Regulus is associated with Leo as well. And then the colors are all chosen for different reasons. Of course, elemental elements are there. And the sayings are usually something that just pops in my head, right? So the key is really only as important as the door that it opens, right? So
yeah, I really like what you're putting on there now. Is that something that's on the bottom or the top, or something that like when is it opened?
So those are on the ends of the barrels. So whenever you'll walk into like our rack house at Old Homestead, you'll see all of the different things I've drawn over the years there in the distillery. That barrel is probably going to set for at least 4 years, would be my guess, maybe 6 years. It's hard to
Wow.
say, being as young as
Okay.
what we are with this distillery, but
Right.
you know, it'll hopefully age gracefully. Both the whiskey and the image itself. We'll see. Sometimes they get pretty raunchy after a while as far as the image goes, because those barrel sugars push out of them, etc. But you know, I think there's something too I've talked about on your show before. You know, distillation is all about capturing spirits and quintessences, right? And
well, and I'm going to have you move a little bit more into the
Yeah.
camera so folks can see you.
Yeah,
All I
sorry.
can see is half of your head.
Sorry, the
There
bed's
you
right
go.
here. So
yeah, we're literally like inches from each other.
Right.
I know it doesn't look that way.
but yeah, so it's all about capturing quintessences or the spirit of a thing, right? So that's what distillation is. You're capturing the spirit. And a good example would be, say, with something like apple brandy, and this goes back to alchemy, right? All distillation comes from alchemy. And so with apple brandy, what's the thing that you're trying to do? You're trying to capture what made that apple what it was when it was absolutely, you know, at its peak of ripeness. So to the point of someone opens a bottle of apple brandy they bought from you in January. What should it do? Well, the aroma of it should take them back to the moment when they were underneath an apple tree in late summer when everything was right? You've captured the spirit, the essence, the virtus of the thing. And so I think the same is true for the maturation process, right? So you're trying to use images to imbue some further qualities into the product that you're distilling, because it shows intent. And every creative endeavor must have intent behind it. I think that's a part of the problem with the world today, is that most people don't have a passion, and so therefore they don't have an intent. And if they're doing anything, they're basically mimicking or miming a lot of times. And I don't find a lot of life, and I don't find a lot of love in that. And so I want to be the distillery that's doing the opposite of that. You know, we're leaning all the way into the Southern Hoosier folklore that we can, the Southern Hoosier magic that we can. What made the Black Forest of Southern Indiana special in the 1800s is still here to this day. It's just that everyone forgot about it except for us. And so
yeah, like in this picture, when I look into that barrel, I mean, I can literally smell and taste the apples. It looks so good, right? And what you're describing, I mean, it all sounds so good and fresh. I mean, you're doing it right there. You're mashing it all up, and you can see, like in a lot of your pictures, mashing up different stuff. I mean, it looks awesome. And like you said, it's all about intention, right, Kim?
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Did you want to talk a little bit more about some of the other stuff when it comes to, like, I guess the astrological stuff or related to what you're doing?
Yeah. So the astrology is important, you know, both for those symbols and the cosmic powers that be, as they are, you know, during the day, during distillation, right? And this is something that I started noticing many years ago, maybe 12 years ago. I started tracking moon phases, and I started tracking just the actual sign of the moon at the time, and keeping track of those sort of things, plus, you know, weather, barometric pressure, that sort of stuff, and seeing, sort of tracking how does that affect distillation. And then from there, I've gotten much deeper into that in terms of, so, okay, if I know that, for me, moon phases are very easy to track how that affects distillation, and it makes sense, right? There's a gravitational pull, etc. That's one thing. But then what are the intents of the day? Because me as a distiller, I'm a pot still distiller, which is a batch method. That's the old method, you know, the same one that was practiced during the times of alchemy. My mood is going to affect the way the distillation runs, right? And the way that I affect the material that I'm handling, the raw material. So I started tracking all of that stuff for distillations as well. And that's a lot of what ends up on the barrels. But every day for me starts with astrology. And I'm usually publishing that to social media every day as well, so people can track that too. Because I think that most people don't, if they know anything about astrology, they maybe maybe they know a little bit about birth charts. They definitely know their solar signs, and they, everybody always just goes ahead and identifies as whatever their solar sign is, as opposed to realizing that everything affects everybody every single day. And it's a good baseline too, if you're into magic, whether it be ceremonial magic or folk magic, that sort of thing. Where are we, currently in the cosmos, and what are at least the major aspects that are going to affect us on this day, that might affect the outcome of the various intentions that we have. That's very much so what the almanac's kind of about, on top of some, articles about distillation as well, just in its common form or more advanced form, and various folk arts and things of that nature. Like I've done, a lot of things with, talking about how to make maple syrup, or how to make alchemical clay to make your own pot stills, or articles about malting corn, or various other folk stories like the Tom Stroud thing, that was a really cool one that I was not aware of until recently. For lack of any better word, this sort of, I guess the word would be hobo, that lived out in an area in between Orange and Washington County, and we found an illustration of them and a lot of stories on them and stuff like that we included in the almanac.
And there's an entire appendix at the end of the almanac.
That's what I'm actually scrolling down to.
Yeah, the charts that you drew regarding the astrology and all of that.
Yeah, so this year with the almanac in particular, what I tried to do, this is the third year for the Practical Distillers and Alchemist Almanac. So the idea behind this whole thing was, there are farmers' almanacs, there's old farmers' almanacs, there's been a lot of different ones throughout history. But did you know that there has never been a distiller's almanac, right? You would have thought at some point that somebody would have put two and two together and went, alchemy is very influenced by astrology. Why is distillation not seemingly, even hinted to in the old archives of a lot of the old farmers' almanacs? I couldn't find any distillation related articles. And that's part of where this stemmed from. The other part that this stemmed from was that despite the million other things that I do, like One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute or podcast about distilling, there were always these cool little projects that I got to work on, or that I got interested in, little rabbit holes that I fell into, right? And so there are things that I wanted to share with people, but they had nowhere to go. So the almanac is a part of that, and they tend to be the more magical or folk leaning things, right, that seem to hold up to writing. And that's the idea. So the almanac serves as a twofold thing. This year, we really focused on about 30 pages worth of charts plus astrological rules and the things that I look at daily in my astrology. And that'll get added to over the years. But I now have like a 30-page section that I never have to write again, which is phenomenal. Finally, because that's 30 pages. I don't have to write every year. That'll be the core of the almanac, just like you have something similar to that in the old farmer's almanac. The other part of it is that a lot of this folk magic that I practice, this is not high ceremonial magic. I'm not a ritual guy. It's not the thing that I do, right? I'll sit down and do some geomancy or various things like that, but I'm not doing Solomonic ritual, and I'm not doing the Abrahamic sort of background sort of stuff. The stuff that I do is a much more practical, right? Things, like I said, I learned from my grandparents, or things I picked up myself over time. And I really needed to, for my own good, to double down on what are the things that actually make my magic what it is, right? And so the almanacs over time will serve as sort of this grimoire for all of these things that I've done in the art of distillation. I think a lot of other distillers are interested in, or tangentially related to the art of distillation, to where in time, say every 4 years, there'll be 4 almanacs that come out every 4 years. We may go through and we may pull the articles that are unique and original, and the magic and the charts that are unique and original, without all the extra astrology stuff, but publish that in sort of an omnibus edition down the road, where every 4 years there would be a new grimoire that sort of grew out of this, an actual practical workbook that people could get a hold of and do some folk magic, or understand folk magic a little better, or realize that, everything that you do that is uniquely you is a part of your magic, and a part of what makes you an integral part of this creative universe, so to speak.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about some of the other things that you put into the actual like the ingredients that are a big deal.
Yes.
I think you talked a little bit about the wormwood and all kinds of different things. And I'm not going to try to pronounce some of them.
Yeah. That's As much as anything, because again, distillation springs from the art of alchemy and spagyric medicine and those sort of things. So I'm very interested in plant medicine. I can't say medicine when it comes to alcohol in the United States because there's a certain regulatory agency that doesn't like that. But as Alan Bishop, and not a representative of my distillery, those spagyric medicines very much interest me. The history of how spagyric medicines became recreational alcohols very much interest me. The correspondences between plants and planets and spirits and intelligences of planets very much so interest me. The idea of a spirit and imbibing a spirit, and how does that spirit then inhabit you for a moment? People don't think about that.
I was going to ask you about that. Like when you drink it, I mean, you have this sort of intention and things like that. Like, do you ever, I don't know, have spirits hang out around you, and do you ever try to ghost hunt Kim or something and say, hey man, do you like this pour? Is it any good or what? Or, have you ever tried anything like that?
Well, what we generally do is we use it as an offering to those that visit our altar, or in his case, if he's working on a prototype or something and has a makeshift altar set up while he's doing that, we offer that as an offering to whoever's around, and
within
reason. Yes.
Usually you're after a particular influence.
Like, so for instance, I will leave absinthe for Artemis. I will leave that we had there for a minute. We had a cherry liqueur, and I leave that for Hecate. She loved that. That glass would be dry within like 6 hours. And you notice that they're visiting, and we're talking, this is a time of year when the air conditioner is running. Our house stays humid all the time anyway, so there's no reason for it to evaporate. But the glasses are empty. For like my parents, they weren't necessarily hard liquor drinkers all the time, but I will leave them cups of coffee, and those cups will be completely empty within a few hours. So that's kind of how we utilize it that way.
And that's very much so definitely the way that you utilize those sort of things. On the other side of that, there's also the imbibing of the spirit itself, right? So the spirit of the plants has an effect. The spirit of the alcohol, what's the base of the alcohol, right? So is it a grain base? Where was that grain grown at? How was it handled? How was it cared for? What was there on that land previously? That has an effect. These are all effects and bear in mind that there are people who have issues with alcohol consumption, obviously, and I understand this. And so this is excluding that, because I do not make alcohol for those people, right? If they get a hold of it, they get a hold of it. That's not who I'm making it for. I'm making it for the person who is using it the right way, and not disabusing it, and is using it for joy and happiness, or to work through a moment, or as a social lubricant, that sort of thing. But very much so, you are imbibing a spirit. You are taking a spirit into you. There's just no way around it, regardless of what someone's religious inclinations may or may not be, because I know some people do have an issue with that. But you got to understand, it all comes from alchemy, and that's very much so what they were trying to do. And so there's also the storytelling aspect, right? I believe I talked about this with you before too.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
So
I mean, when you drink one of your drinks, I mean, it's not just some kind of mass-produced thing. I mean, a lot of love went into this, and a lot of, like you're talking about, the alchemy and everything went into it. And like you said, it's not just for, I'm going to go get drunk. No, this is something that you're going to pour and sit and, have a cigar with, or talk over with your friends with, or something. It's something to enjoy, right?
Yeah, right spirit for the right moment and for the right reasons, right? And for joyful reasons, not sorrowful ones. This should be an elevation of life, not something to drag one down, or so it's always with positive intent, right? Now sometimes positive intent can be a little chaotic. There is that aspect, right? And a lot of that has to do with again, what is the spirit that you are making, right? So maybe a rye whiskey's got a little fiery character to it. It's got a little Mars to it, right? And maybe you name it after, say, a feisty woman who ran a brothel at one point in time, right? There's a little chaotic energy there sometimes too, right? But what's
your favorite one that y'all named after somebody? Do you have a favorite, or?
So at the previous distillery, Spirits of French Lick, Maddie Gladden and Lee Sinclair. Maddie was the woman I was just talking about in terms of the rye whiskey. Lee Sinclair, he was a local banker, local merchant, local mill owner, big name, also tied to the Scottish Sinclairs. A lot of occult esoteric history with him. Built the largest freestanding dome in the world until the Superdome was built over at French Lick, Indiana. Amazing man. At the new place, sort of a combination. So one is a whiskey I'm working on named Reverend Thomas Green, which was the name of a local preacher distiller here in the Black Forest that I've used as my alias for many years. Whenever I was doing reenacting and talking about distilling here in the Black Forest. And then the other is until Old Homestead, I'd never leaned into my moonshining background in the legal industry. And this is the first time I've ever done that, which is kind of cool because I get to express a different side of myself that I don't normally get to express. But I have a whiskey that is named after my papaw, W.P. Wilson. That'll be out, 3, 4, 5 years from now, and it is filled with his spirits.
With his spirits.
Yes, it will certainly be a little more to that chaotic effect. I would suspect, but
yeah,
that would be trickster energy, is what that is.
Trickster energy is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I got a little picture of a little spirit coming out of this one.
Yeah, a little absinthe sort of characterization going on there. Absinthe is something else I'm very passionate about. That is the crossroads where Hecate and Hermes meet the green witches of the Swiss Alps and the folklore of the Swiss Alps, and something I'm very in love with. As a matter of fact, we just finished up October 11th last month. We just finished up doing a historic Indiana history marker that went over at Vinoge, Indiana. I'm sorry, Musée de Vinoge in Vivi, Indiana. I'll get that right in a minute. That's a mouthful right there, which deals with the history of the first successful U.S. winery in the United States, which was there in Vivi, Indiana, as well as the first 2 absinthe distillers in the United States that we know of in 1830 in Vivi, Indiana, Griffith Dickinson and John Detrow, right?
I've never had it. Like I've seen it being served with sugar because it's a little bit, is it like a bitter taste?
It is. It's a traditionally like a digestif for an aperitif. It was created as you can go back to the 1600s, 1500s. Culpeper's Complete Herbal has something that resembles absinthe to some degree, basically as a tonic to settle a sour stomach, but it's really good for digestion. It's really good for parasites as far as the qualities of wormwood itself. Now, I got to be careful with characterizing alcohol in certain ways, but that's how it starts. It starts off as a medicine, as a way, as both a liver tonic and a stomach tonic, as much as anything. So I will tell you, if you ever see absinthe that is that color, it is absolutely fake.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I see it sometimes with like fire or something.
Oh yeah, Bohemian Method. That's a modern thing. So these absinthes that were those crazy neon green colors, those came out of very poor producers that were making vodka and then flavoring it with crazy oils back in the 90s. And that Bohemian Method of lighting it on fire comes out of that too. And so absinthe, good absinthe. And I'm not listen, I'm pretty I'm not going to judge somebody if they want to light their absinthe on fire, except I'm going to judge you.
Doesn't that burn all the stuff off, right?
It doesn't do it any favors, in my opinion. Absinthe is one of those, and this is one of the other crossroads there. So I've always loved spirituality and reading about spirituality and philosophy. Absinthe is the philosopher's drink, right? That is the set down, have 3 or 4 glasses of it, which by the time you add water and sugar, it's about 14% alcohol. It's like 3 or 4 strong glasses of wine. Yeah, you're going to feel pretty good, but you're fairly lucid. You're not, it's a different experience than drinking whiskey, let's say. It's why the painters loved it so much, because they found that they could drink absinthe, but they weren't drunk in the way they would be if they were drinking whiskey. They were still lucid. They were still very aware. It's almost like walking on clouds or something of that nature. You're not high or anything. You're not going to hallucinate on it.
You definitely feel like you're floating.
There are physiological effects and psychological effects that happen with the botanicals. And a lot of those botanicals have very certain physiological effects.
Do you ever use those, Kim, to help you with some of the tarot stuff? Or
I prefer to not be imbibing while I'm reading. And I prefer for my clients to be sober as well.
Yes.
Because I don't need somebody to have their guard down for me to be able to read them. Because I'm not psychic. I'm not trying to break through any walls. It's my spirit team talking to their spirit team, and I'm interpreting the cards. And I'm also, I like alcohol, but I don't partake on the regular. Like I taste for him, and I give him tasting notes when he asks me for them, but to just sit down and like drink, I don't.
Yeah, I'm the same way. It's only like holidays or,
I do love absinthe. I absolutely love absinthe. And that's the one that like the first distillery he was ever at was that particular opening party. I drank way too much absinthe that day. And
we also used it. It was the one thing that when she had COVID, she could still taste and smell. Yeah, I think
some of the stuff that you guys pulled from your garden. So what kind of stuff do you make? Like jams and jellies and stuff like that?
I do pickles. I've done jams and jellies. We did elderberry syrup this year.
Yep.
I do spaghetti sauces or marinara sauces and salsa, chili base, and then green beans and corn, all the things. I've actually canned chicken before. Like we had extra roosters that we sent to freezer camp, and I cut them up and cold packed them and pressure canned them. And that was delicious. I've made bone broth. Yeah. This year I did chaos canning with Penny, our daughter. I didn't want to go.
That? Chaos canning. That's
chaos canning. Yes. So this was me not wanting to go to town and buy the packets of things that I normally use whenever I make pickles. So we went out to the garden and we harvested herbs. And I used the spices I had in the cabinet and the garlic that Alan harvested and spring onions that had gotten big. And I made my own dill pickle recipe. Penny and I did with celery. We did celery seed and mustard seed and pepper and salt and grape leaf. We used grape leaf and the pickle crisp or citric acid capsules to keep the pickles crisp. And then I made my own steam canner this year because I didn't feel like shelling out the $80 for a steam canner. So I just flipped my rack over in my water bath canner so that it raised the jars up above the water. 15 minutes they canned and they're delicious. So
fun. So all kinds of Thanksgiving recipes right there.
Yeah.
Do you do like other stuff with your herbs when you were doing like the divination and things like that? Or
I do. I actually do burn like wormwood and I use garden sage, not white sage. I use we go out and we harvest cedar for fat wood and then also cedar sprigs. Yeah. To burn and clear energy and things like that. I use rosemary. But when I'm working directly with divination, wormwood opens all the doorways for the other side. And that's what I use it for. It's also a direct connection to Hecate and to Artemis. So,
and we grow a lot of the botanicals that we use in general, not only just for cooking and distillation, but like she said, for her ceremonies, and then also for making various different like blessing powders or things like that, or being involved in some of the more necromantic things that I'm interested in terms of being able to communicate with the past or communicate with the dead, however one wants to look at it. We grow a lot of marigolds and Mexican sunflowers and things that are associated with the dead, wormwood and things of that nature as well. And we use all those things in various different ways, or to make tinctures, as we talked about. Mm-hmm. We do a lot of foraging, a whole lot of foraging. As a matter of fact, I did a few years ago, I did a video for One Piece at a Time where I made a gin, and the idea was I'm not buying anything for this. I'm going to go on this old railroad bed out here, and I'm going to find everything. From start to finish.
Yeah. Some people call it prepping, but I mean, it's a way of life. If you're on a homestead, you got all that there. I'm sure your dad, taught you all this. And it's like, how many years down your family line does this go?
So that's been one of those interesting things, because I don't know. A lot of people will be like, well, I've got, 9, 10, 11 generations or whatever. And
Right. Yeah.
I honestly don't know. At least 4, maybe 5 that I suspect. I don't know, but I suspect. Maybe more on my mom's side. Honestly, they were very deep in the Appalachian Mountains, and on her mom's side, this is where necromancy gets interesting, because I stay away from her mom's side of the family, because buddy, the stuff you read, like if you got a direct line, if you're a direct line descendant of somebody that they called Steppen Jesse Barger,
Right.
Can you imagine how he got the name of like Steppen Jesse Barger? I bet he didn't get it from dancing. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
So generations for sure. It's definitely in the blood. There's the family history on the bishop side, or on the butler side, which is my dad's mom's side, is really interesting, because they're Irish by way of Normandy, and Norman by way of Rome, right?
Okay.
And then also direct line descendancy from Charlemagne. So it's hard to put your finger on exactly what was probably going on within that family over certain generations. But the butlers show up a lot in history, with some other pretty interesting names, I guess I'd say, but none of it's hardline provable, like who were they, what were they, that sort of thing.
But all these things that and that you're teaching others at your institute, I mean, these are things that everybody needs to know and learn. What if we do have a massive EMP and we lose everything? You guys are sitting pretty, and the rest of us are screwed, because we don't have a clue about how to do any of this stuff, right?
We're pretty within reason, and that's part of the goal of sharing these things. It's twofold. For exactly what you're talking about. The other, though, is that modern society suffers from a twofold problem. And the first problem is that we don't know who we are, because we don't have any core based spiritual values, right? We don't have any everything's just mimicry for the most part, right? And if it's not religious mimicry, then it is popular media mimicry.
Yeah.
But when you don't have that culture that you can lean into, then it's very hard to know yourself. And then if you couple that with not having a passion, because look around and when you really talk to people, so many people don't really have a passion. If they're interested in a thing, are they interested in it because they're passionate about it? Or are they interested in it because someone else has told them to be interested in it? And so you lose yourself. And so we would set pretty in certain ways, but much like any of the old estates way back when, you can't produce everything yourself, but you can certainly trade for things. And the more people that we educate, the more chances of widespread survival or potentially thriving that there are. The other problem.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about seeds. Like, do you save your seeds? Because I've heard people talk about, I don't know if I'm using the right terms or not, but like GMO seeds, and that the poor bees are getting all messed up because there's all these like weird super seeds and stuff. Like, do you save the old good ones?
We do. So I not only do we save some heirlooms, we do save a few heirlooms, but much like everything else I ever did, I'm not a purist. So the problem with the Ohio Valley is that the Miami and Delaware, they weren't native here, and the natives that were here before them were long gone before we ever got here, right? So the adaptability in the Ohio Valley of seed varieties, that are native to this area was pretty slim and none, short of a few old timers that had some stuff that we picked up and we do use and we do grow and save seeds from. But for many years on the old tobacco farm, that's what I did. We were raising produce and selling shine on the side, but I was really the real thing I was interested in at that time. It's been so many weird stages in my life already, but I was really focused on, like, how do I fill those gaps? What are the things that we don't have in the Ohio Valley that can be adapted to the Ohio Valley? And that was a part of this learning process too, and teaching process, was create new seed varieties, from crossing old heirlooms together, or even old commercial varieties together, things that have low input agriculture, not a lot of fertilizer needed for anything. that it's drought tolerant and it's fungus tolerant, etc., disease resistant, whatever you want to say. And then in the early generations, take those early crosses before they become what's called open pollinated, meaning they come back true from seed. Take those early crosses and get those masses of seed, and then we would send them out to whoever wanted to grow them. And it didn't matter what bioregion they were in, because early on, then they could select for what fit their region, right? Mm-hmm. And luckily, a gentleman by the name of Joseph Lofthouse, he's somebody might be interesting to have on your program too in the future.
He has a featured article in this year's version of the Almanac.
Yes,
too.
absolutely. Okay. He is in the Almanac.
It's actually a short story. It's actually a really beautiful story about the process of.
Yes. But Lofthouse, he continued a lot of the work that I kind of started when I got out of the plant breeding thing. I still do some of that, but so now I have the varieties that I need for the most part, right? I don't have to continue the breeding work. Lofthouse is continuing the active breeding work that I started. He's taken it levels way beyond anything that I ever could have imagined or dreamed of, and is doing really amazing things, and has been featured by like Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds and at the Heirloom Seed Expo. And he's kind of there's an underground movement of seed people that are not like your normal seed savers. And
isn't there like a bunker for seeds for when the next bomb hits or something? Well, that's how we're all gonna like find all of our stuff, like food. And
that's what's interesting. So that's the Svalbard Seed Bank is what that is, and that's what they say it's for. But interestingly enough, there are a lot of legal ties with things that go into that seed bank, and the problem is that multinationals have access to that seed bank right now. I don't know of any multinationals knocking down the door to get a hold of a weird tomato or whatever, but they could, and then they could use it for breeding material. We spent a lot of time when I was younger and she was younger trying to help shut down people that were doing exactly this. So like Burpee Seeds at one point in time tried to say that they had a patent on
variety protected.
Yeah. They had a patent on bumps on squash, right? So
really?
Like warty pumpkins and that sort of thing. Well, that gene is ancient. It's always existed, right? Huh. And so luckily a lot of us were able to get together and prove that wasn't the case. Another gentleman tried to, actually it might have been Burpee again, I can't remember. Somebody tried to patent a white blackberry, which has existed in wild forever in very small populations. And then Luther Burbank actually spent many years breeding pure white blackberries, the snowbank and the iceberg berry. We got that shut down. There was the pink lemonade blueberry. They tried to patent pink blueberries, and that had already existed. So there's a lot of shadiness in agriculture, even on the home gardener level. There's a lot, but
do you think that's what's messing up the bees and stuff like that?
I think there's a lot that's causing that. I think that it's an overdependence on pesticide and overdependence on fungicides. I think it's we have no-till, which is great as far as controlling erosion. But if you're hitting that with commercial fertilizers, you're killing all the microbiome that's in the soil. So you can have really fluffy, nice soil that doesn't erode, that's completely dead. Sort of the same as industrial alcohol, right?
Right.
You get into GNS alcohol, which is lifeless, soulless. It has nothing to it, right? But I also think there's a lot of electronic issues, that are causing a lot of interference. There's just so many toxins and the things that we've kind of done to the world. And don't get me wrong, I think that I'm not a pessimist and I am a humanist. There are things that we can turn around. Mm-hmm. I do believe that firmly. So I know it's sort of popular nowadays to go in this sort of anti-human route of like we're the parasite and we're evil, but I don't believe that. So.
And I think that as far as the seed saving on our part, it's in sending out the seeds is somewhere there's always going to be a gene or a variety that is going to work for somebody.
Yeah.
And like we put our seed stock through literal hell. Literal. I mean, when we were first starting out, we didn't fertilize other than what we absolutely had to.
The more weeds, the better.
The more weeds, the better. The drought.
The more bugs, the better.
The more bugs, the better. And now we have varieties that, short of, getting flooded, which now those seeds that we were able to seed this year, those will do well if it ever should happen again. But now we have seeds that will produce in just about anything.
Yeah. And they didn't get flooded like a little bit. They had like 12 foot of water on them.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That was a lot of water.
I was really,
Yeah.
really shocked that you could still see, 3 feet of sunflowers above the water.
but that's, and I'm going to use this as another example of the thing too. I was sort of talking about that Greco-Egyptian sort of magical view of the world. For me, those things, those seeds are definitely a part of necromancy as well, right? Because those genes, whether it's the original seeds or not, those genes go back in human history. Somebody saw them as important enough to save. They're here for us now to use, not to patent, not to own. We don't own those things. We're just passing them on to the next generation, and the next generation might not keep them pure either. There may be a guy like me or a gal like me in 100 years that starts crossing my stuff with other stuff just because, hey, I got to fill a niche here somewhere. I got to find something that grows here, and this has this gene I want, and that has that gene that I want. And that's necromancy. That's, no one really dies until the last time their name is mentioned.
And one of the ways that I look at that is,
Mike's there.
I know, but
you can use that one too. It doesn't matter.
I'm trying to stay in the frame.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I look at that also is it takes a certain thing to turn on those genes. And that's just like, because we do participate in the remembrance of past loved ones on All Saints Day or Dia de los Muertos, and we have an ofrenda that we go and we do all the things anyway. So what he's saying is you have to remember someone, and the seeds is turning on that gene when it needs to be turned on. So it's like a living ofrenda.
Yes, very much so. Very much so. Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes complete sense for sure. I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up your link tree, because you got a lot of different things on it.
There's just a lot. I don't know. We're very eclectic people.
And sometimes we bite off more than we can chew.
No doubt about it. That's for sure. Yeah. And then add bike riding to it, because why not?
Oh yeah, congrats on the bike riding thing. I see that frog was huge that you saw the other day.
That's the frog that lives in my basement. That's I call that my Cluricon, which is a drunken Irish leprechaun. That's the spirit of my basement. But
and his babies survived the flood.
Yeah.
I was going to say, is that when he moved in?
No, he was there before the flood, and he lived through it somehow, and so did several of his little ones. So we invite them into it's a cellar more than a basement. But that's the other thing I was going to mention earlier. I'll mention real quick. So Kim had talked about not imbibing while she was doing tarot. So I want to throw something out there for people too that do appreciate alcohol and spirits, or that are interested in distilling. You don't have to drink or be a hardcore drinker to enjoy things of this nature. So I drank for many, many years. I never had a problem setting the bottle down. If you do, please seek help. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength that you're looking for it. But I have actually pretty well, with the exception of an occasional ceremonial drink, I've quit drinking over the past 4 months, because I've been involved in this industry for 12 years legally. And it's everywhere, right? And I needed a break from it. But I actually will tell you that between that and riding that stupid bicycle, I believe I'm a better distiller now and a better person now than I have been.
You're doing a great job, I have to say. You're very inspiring with that. So yeah, keep that up. And thank you for that message too, because unfortunately some people do fall into that trap of alcohol. And please, I know it's Thanksgiving. There's going to be people imbibing a lot because of having to deal with family and whatever else is on the go. But so if you need help, reach out. So I'm going to add this to the stage here. This is your link tree, one piece at a time, and there's so many things on here. There's the Alchemist Cabinet. You want to talk about the Alchemist Cabinet?
Yeah, so the alchemistcabinet.com is sort of our main website, and that's where you can keep up with everything that we do, although we don't update it a lot. It's more like links to various things that we do, kind of like the link tree is. But you can buy the Alchemist Cabinet Volume 1 and the Black Forest Method books on there, which those are books straight up about the art and history of distillation here in the Black Forest. You can find the documentary the Alan Bishop Experience there somewhere. I highly suggest not watching it.
That was pre abstaining from alcohol.
Yes, for sure. There's the
Also right at the end of COVID, was it not?
yeah, there's the of course the Practical Distillers and Alchemist Almanac. That honestly, out of everything in my career, that's the thing that I'm the most proud of. There will be links to another distillery project that I'm working on with my friend Eric Wolf of Stolen Wolf and his wife Aviana, called Wolf and Wilson, which pays tribute to both his family and my family, the Wilsons on my mom's side, when they came through Pennsylvania. So we're doing colonial style whiskeys and rums and things of that nature. There's the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute, which is literally me on YouTube just rambling about the art of distillation and people asking questions. And then Kim and I have If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything, which is it's sort of a catch-all. Like it's paranormal, it's superstition, it's high strangeness, it's folklore, it's magic, it's whatever is sort of in that realm of spirituality or preternatural, supernatural that we're interested in at that time. Right now we're in the middle of a new season of If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. And
you guys got to listen in to the folks listening. They've got their own podcast. If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything. Check that out. And Kim, are you still doing the 3 sirens and a squirrel?
Yeah, we haven't done any recently. Because
we got to give a shout out, right?
Yeah.
Rose 777.
Yeah.
And Jace, I had them both on the show. JJ was on season 2, episode 48. Season 2, episode 140, and she's coming back for season 3, episode 57.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Yay.
Yeah, we haven't done anything recently because there's things going on, and we will. It's just one of those things. It's we don't want to force it. It has to be organic.
I like turning it over to them because then I don't have to worry about it for a minute. Other than doing the editing, it's fantastic.
But I have recently recorded several episodes just on my own when he's been out of town or been, not made it back from his bike ride in time, so I'm learning that part of it, but he does all the editing. So
yeah. And are you still doing the collab with Paranormal Coven?
Actually they disbanded this past summer. Again, things came up, and they had to disband, at least for the time being. Maybe they'll get back together. I hope they do, because they were on to something, Yeah,
they were on season 2, episode 134. But and I was gonna give also a shout out to Chucky Danger, Charles Stevens, for his Linktree. He's the mastermind behind the Linktree International Paranormal Alliance, the IPA. And you can find Chucky on Instagram. Chucky_Danger, and he's got his own new podcast.
I love it. I love
his own. Woohoo!
I absolutely love Chucky Danger. I would not trade him for anything in the world at all. If the world goes south, either he's welcome here, or I'd like to come and we'll just chase Sasquatch in Canada.
He's otherwise known. I'm going to give another shout out as Charles Stevens, and he was on season 2, episode 50, and season 2, episode 119. So I'm hoping to have him back again soon. But he's doing a great job with his IPA.
Awesome. Absolutely. I want to give another quick shout out real quick. I haven't talked to the guy for a while, but guy that we had on If You Have Ghosts, Chasing Mound Builders. So there are very few people that I really, really follow on social media, and I follow Chasing Mound Builders because he inspires a lot of things in me and thought processes, and I appreciate it. And he's another Southern Hoosier. Almost said Indianer.
Well, folks, you want to give a shout out to any of your fans or folks listening?
Yeah, honestly, just for anybody who has been a fan of anything that I've done, and I know it's a little scattered, it's eclectic, and it's a very small group of people, but that's what I want, right? I don't need everybody. I just need a few people that are really interested in what I do. But whether that's for the art of distillation or for the If You Have Ghost stuff or the alchemical stuff or the astrological stuff, there's a reason I keep doing this. And a lot of it is for me, don't get me wrong, but I love it when people truly get what I'm doing. And the fact that it's a very small group of people is fine. That's what it should be. I don't want everybody to get it because it's not for everybody. And I like it that way. So just keep supporting me and buy my alcohol. That goes for everybody. Whether I want you to follow me or not, just buy the alcohol, because I love distilling and I need to make a living. And, you
pour
know,
a glass of sunshine spirits for Moonshine Mike.
yeah. Pour a glass of sunshine and smile.
There you go.
And oldhomesteaddc.com. That's the distillery with the hotel. And so you can get as drunk as you want, as long as you can still crawl. You can make it to your room.
And Kim, I forgot to mention your boutique.
Well, I'm not really making the jewelry so much anymore. I've had people reach out to me for spell work, and I am willing to do that or collab with Alan on doing that because he's really good at putting together some really amazing charms. But mainly I focus on the tarot reading now. That's kind of where I'm being led. That's where Spirit's telling me you need to speak up and use your voice and do this. So I've mainly been doing the tarot reading.
Okay.
But yeah.
We're like a limited edition catalog. Things just kind of come and go. It's like the McRib.
Right.
Everybody, check out Kim and Alan Bishop. Go to their link tree. You'll see it down there on the bottom. Now, I usually do a land acknowledgement at the beginning, and I usually at the end, I'll do some music. But today, I'll go ahead and share the land acknowledgement at the end. Oops. I know I said I was going to do that, but yeah, I'll bring it on screen now, and we'll end off with the land acknowledgement for Newfoundland and Labrador. And everybody in the U.S. have a spooky, awesome USA Thanksgiving. And thanks again, Ellen and Kim, for being on the show. So we're going to leave you with this land acknowledgement. I'll go ahead and pull it up. It'll only take about a minute for the acknowledgement, and everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for having us.
Happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Let me go ahead and push play on this. I make sure it's on the stage. There it is. And let's go ahead and push play.
St. John's
is home to a rich, diverse, and vibrant urban indigenous community. Located on the ancestral and unceded territory of the Beothuk. Winds and water around the city has traditionally served as a gathering place for the Mi'kmaq. The broader region of Newfoundland and Labrador continues to be home to diverse indigenous peoples, including First Nation, Inuit, and Métis. We honor and pay respect to the past, present, and future caretakers of these territories. We say this 3 times. We honor and pay respect to the past, present, and future caretakers of these territories. We honor and pay respect to the past, present, and future caretakers of these territories. Thank you, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving. Stop the recording.